It's good to see you today. Hope you're having a good day. We're in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 this week. We're going to be looking in verses 8 through 11 today. Let's get over there. Let's get into it. Verse 8. Love never fails. But whether there are prophecies, they will fail. Whether there are tongues, they will cease. Whether there is knowledge, it will vanish away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. To look at this passage, and I was just thinking about how it's effectively one leads to another. And whether it's not, I don't think it's really not this, but that, but we're moving from a time frame in the first century when Paul says, I'm going to show you a more excellent way. So on one side, we have the current way, and on the other side, we have the more excellent way. And one is going to be leading to the other. So, to look at the points, we're going from part to whole. Prophesy in part. We know in part. Right? Look at the verses. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away or will cease. We're moving from piecemeal to whole. And that's what makes it a more excellent way. The whole counsel of God, as it is. It's an amazing thing that we have a Bible at our fingertips, whether it be electronically or whether it be paper and paper bound, whatever the case may be, that we have God's will at our fingertips, that we have gone from part to whole, and now we can read it. The Holy Spirit has searched the deep things of God and has revealed the deep things of God, and as we read, we understand according to Ephesians. Paul says, I'm going to show you a more excellent way. The Corinthians, undoubtedly, they thought that the time that they were living in was the most amazing time, and it was amazing, as the gifts of the Spirit were given, and as God's will was being revealed. And it was an amazing time. But there was a more excellent way. And the more excellent way was when you went from going part to part to the whole. And that's what we're talking about. We're also we're moving from infancy to maturity. Paul says, when I was a child, I thought as a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. The church, it was an amazing time. The gospel had gone to the Gentiles. And Paul talks about it, how he had sowed and Apollos had watered. He writes in another place how he broke new ground, and that's what he endeavored to do, and that was God's work that he had for him. When the Holy Spirit, when Paul and Barnabas, when they're in Antioch, and the Holy Spirit says, set them aside for the work I have for them, and they're going to the Gentiles. And it was an amazing time. Those first decades, that first century, it was an amazing time as the church was built and as the saved were being added to the church. The Lord added to the church daily those who were being saved, I should say. It was an amazing time. But the church was in its infancy. And there were growing pains. And that's what was happening in Corinth. But there's a more excellent way, and the more excellent way is maturity. We're moving from infancy to maturity. And when we think about the church in its infancy, and Paul says, I could not speak to you as to spiritual, but as to carnal, as to babes. Well, what are kids like sometimes? Right? Hopefully you understand the picture. From infancy to maturity. We're also moving from no to yes. What do I mean by that? The gifts. Did everybody have the gifts? And we've already touched on this. Did everybody have the gifts? No. Were all apostles? No. Did all speak in tongues? No. Did all prophesy? No. Did all have the gift of healing? No. No, 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 no. Not everybody had all those gifts. There may have been people in Corinth who didn't have any of the gifts. There would have been unbelievers coming into their assembly, as speaks about in chapter 14. Did they have the gifts? No. Not everybody had the gifts. Could everybody love? Could everybody have faith? Could everybody have hope? We're moving from no, 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 to yes. We've spoken in days past about accessibility, and that's what we're talking about. This is the more excellent way. We're going from no to yes. Hopefully you understand what I mean by that. The gifts were given, but they weren't given to everybody. That's why if you spoke in tongues, what did you have to do? You had to pray that someone could interpret. No to yes. We're moving from stopping to continuing. When he says in the passage, for we know in part and we prophesy in part, verse 8, pardon me, love never fails. Love never fails. But whether there are prophecies, they will fail, they'll stop. Whether there are tongues, they will cease, they will stop. Whether there is knowledge, and that's divinely given knowledge, those things, they're not going to be revealed anymore because it's all been revealed. The age of the gifts is coming to an end. It's going to stop. But now abide faith, hope, and love. We're going from stopping to continuing, and the greatest of these is love. Some things are going to stop. These things are going to stop. These other things, this is what is going to continue. The more excellent way. Hope the study's been helpful for you. Hope you have a good day. Appreciate you tuning in, and I hope to see you tomorrow as we bring our study in 1 Corinthians 13 to a close. Thanks for being with us today.